Pretty much any show would be fine. My first show was Springsteen in '81 at the Spectrum.
How about that?
Way to go, Tom Moore.
All right.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
sir.
Were you in a letter section? Were you in a numbered section? Do you remember the section?
Yeah, we were in the second level. So
Okay.
I think we were like halfway back in the second level. It was, I just graduated from high school. It was a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, they're 81 Springsteen.
81's probably the River Tour then,
There you
right?
go, man.
That he's
Yeah, so
doing
it was
now?
the second leg of the River Tour, exactly.
So my first show, STP, PT, yours is?
Boston with the late Bradley Delp, More Than a Feeling, and,
That's a good
Take It
show.
Like it's just like the
I
record.
think Tom's got us both
just like
beat.
the record, but really, really loud.
Tom Moore, Calkins Media. Tom, tell us a little bit more about this story you wrote the other day about Sam Hinkie and potentially being bumped into a new role.
Yeah, I think I cited a source as saying that, when Jerry Colangelo went through the Sixers offices, he said, "Where are all the basketball people?" The trend is, was more toward analytics, but the Sixers have all analytics people. So I think now it's kind of going to swing back, and they'll probably hire at least one person, whether it's a GM, whether it's what exactly it is, I'm not sure, but they will hire somebody else, at least one person that sounds of it to be more of a basketball person, and then figure out, the roles and things like that, going forward. But it sounds like at least that seems to be the plan from what, I've heard and from what Colangelo told Keith Pompey of the Inquirer, et cetera.
Yeah, now, you mentioned a couple names, Brian Colangelo, Danny Ferry as well, and we know that he has a connection with Colangelo, Duke, and all that stuff. Does this mean that Hinkie would be out of the organization? Will he be reassigned? I mean, will he virtually have no power? And could that happen by the time April the 13th rolls around, which is their final game?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a very, very good question. I am not 100% sure about that. I had one source tell me it could happen between as soon as now and the and the end of the season, and someone else told me they thought it'd be more toward the draft. And it's possible it could stay the same. Sam Hinkie could still be in charge in one of the scenarios. Another scenario, there was a basketball person in charge of that. Somebody told me, and then Hinkie would be in charge of the analytic ends. So it kind of remains to be seen, how that plays out. I guess depending on interviews. Brian Colangelo was a name. Danny Ferry was another name that people mentioned to me as possibilities.
So Tom, is this an indication that Colangelo, number one, has more power than Hinkie? I think many people believe that anyway, but I guess there could have been some blurred lines. And number two, that Colangelo's not buying into what Hinkie's selling.
Well, I mean, I think let's face it, Mike. Colangelo is like an old school basketball guy, and Sam Hinkie is the newer, analytics, numbers, data, hiring PhDs to crunch the numbers, that type of thing. And, I think there's a place for both in the NBA today. But I think, Colangelo believes maybe it's swung a little bit too far the one way and is trying to amend that so it's not all numbers and that type of thing. He said good things about what Hinkie has done, and, that there is a chance that they could have 4 first-round picks. And if Embiid's healthy and Sarge, you could have, theoretically, 5 or 6 new contributors and, maybe 3 or 4 starters even potentially, depending how things play out next year. So there could be quite a change and quite an influx of talent. And as Colangelo said, things could improve in a hurry, if all goes well, ideally, that they'd be young, but, if you start putting a core together right now, let's face it, who are their guards? Who's their small forward going forward? Maybe Covington is in the mix, but I don't know that he's a starter. You have some big men, but are they fitting? What's going on with that? So, there are definitely some questions.
Tom Moore's with us, Calkins Media, checking out the Sixers as they were eliminated from postseason play last night. Brett Brown and the guys. What is, in your opinion, you're watching this team night in and night out. Last night they competed a little bit better, but man, defensively, they've all of a sudden since the All-Star break, they look disinterested.
Yeah, it is a very good question. I don't really understand because they're not the kind of team that's going to outscore people, and if they score 100 points, they should have a chance to win. And they're losing these games 130 to 116 and 124 to 110. I don't not really understand it. I don't know if it's sort of everybody took a collective sigh of relief after the All-Star break. But, these guys, a lot of these guys are playing for their professional futures. So I don't really understand, if they are indeed sort of putting their foot, not sort of as hungry or whatever. I don't really understand that because, if you look at this rebuild each of the first 2 years, look at some of the guys the Sixers had and look for them the next year. They're not in the NBA. This was their only shot. So these guys are playing for their future, whether it's here or somewhere else. So if they are not, giving maximum effort, which sometimes it appears that is the case, particularly at the defensive end, which is a lot about, effort. I mean, a guy like John Wall is a bear. McConnell is a pretty good defender, but he just couldn't stay in front of him because Wall is just 100 miles an hour, stop on a dime, turn right, turn left, dish, draw contact. I mean, he was incredible last night. But, I don't know. I don't understand it, Mike. I really don't.
Yeah, and Brett kind of had, I don't want to, not a meltdown, but he finally, he lashed out the other night and said it's unacceptable. We felt that we had the respect around the league. What was it? Unprofessional,
yeah,
right. Yeah,
correct.
it's unacceptable,
Correct.
Unprofessional. He thought they had the respect around the league and, the last couple of nights, whatever they've been doing. But that being said, you wonder if a lot of these guys are just hitting the wall. They got a lot of young players out there. Could that really be tied into it? But as you mentioned, Colangelo's evaluating a lot of these guys, and I guess some of these guys are tied to Hinkie as well.
Yes. I think some of it, too, is that these are, they're playing, almost all the teams they're playing other than the Nets the rest of the way are playoff teams. And they're playing for something. And the Sixers, while they're playing for their, individual professional lives, it's not quite the same thing. So they are, they definitely are, have kind of, regressed, I would say, defensively and effort-wise and some other things. And, there's still 22 games left in the season. So, I mean, you still have about 6 weeks, left this year. So, there's still a ways for them to, there's still some work to be done. And, they're at 8 wins. And I've said before, I just want them to get to 10. And it looked like a lock, 2 weeks ago, but, losing 9 in a row, 13 out of 14, and the way they're playing, last night was better. But again, is it an accident that they play better last night without one of their big men in the lineup? I mean, I asked Brett Brown before the game, does it make it easier when you only have one of the two bigs? And he said it does. He said, that's not a negative comment. It's just the facts. It's easier for him if one of them plays because he can play Grant and other guys with him, and it just works better. Because they have more of a traditional lineup, because so many teams have small, go small, what do? And trying Okafor at the 4 defensively, he has some issues with foot speed and, other issues there. It is, as he likes to say, definitely a work in progress.
Tom, it's Pete Thompson. Mike Gill and I have gone back and forth a little bit about how I generally have checked out on the Sixers. He's still invested in the plan. If you could put your salesman cap on, pretend you're a member of the Sixers marketing staff, and try to convince me not to give up the fight and dismiss him. Like, what is there for a guy like me who said, they're always going to lose or they're no good? What do you see on a day-to-day basis that would have you say to me, no, hold on?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's still the two big guys, still trying to make it work. It's a shame they can't sort of use a hybrid where, use Noel defensively and Okafor offensively. That's a heck of a player. Unfortunately, you kind of have to, choose one or the other because their skill sets, the one, the one is a terrific shot blocker, interior defender, and the other guy is a fantastic low post scorer, and that. You have the McConnells, you have you look at a guy like Stauskas. Is he going to be here next year? What's his future? He's under contract. I mean, they could include him in a trade. A guy like Covington, is he going to be here? Probably. Is he a starter? Probably not. But he could be a bench guy. A guy. To give him shooting, perimeter shooting, and so on off the bench. So you kind of have to look more, I think, sort of small term and things like that, as opposed to more the big picture. Because, and the other thing is, that the previous 2 years they made a bunch of trades at the deadline. So Brett Brown had to totally redo things the first year with no Turner, no Lavoie Allen, no Spencer Hawes, and then last year no Carter Williams, no McDaniels. This year they only lost Jakar Sampson, who was barely playing, and yet they've played really poorly since the All-Star break. So that doesn't seem to jive, that he wanted continuity and he got it, and they're really really not playing very well. You would think that would have happened more so the other years because of the circumstances.
Well, of course, as we said, they are eliminated from playoff contention. And,
don't lead with that.
But, as we know, this is the offseason, that if you're going to get reinvested, this is the offseason they have to excite someone like yourself, Pete.
Yeah, I think I really speak for the people that have kind of tuned out. Now I watched Steph Curry the other night, and he was unbelievable. And you just watch and go, God, why couldn't that happen?
Well, there's only one of those guys in the league.
I know, but can't we get something like it?
That's what the plan is, right, Tom? They're planning on trying to get themselves high enough in the draft as many times as they can to try to find a player of that caliber.
Yeah, it's all about getting a star. And, I don't think the original plan was to be a 10 or 12 win team the third year. But I think with Embiid's injury and so on, that was kind of the way, they adapted. And, if they end up with the number 3 pick for 3 years, they got it each of the last 2 years, and they happen to get number 3 this year, that doesn't seem to sort of be enough for all the losing and everything they've gone through. So maybe they get lucky and get 1 or 2, and you can end up with Simmons or Ingram or whatever, and start moving this thing forward.
All right, Tom Moore, Calkins Media, and the 76ers are off tonight. They are back in action tomorrow night. They host Charlotte right here on 97.3. Thanks, Tom.
Sure, anytime, guys.